You're listening to another Woodshop podcast, the okayest podcast of its type. Your hosts are Daniel Dunlap of Daniel Dunlap Woodworks and Peter Kapar of P-Trees Workshop. You can find them as well as the podcast on your favorite social media platforms.
Welcome to episode 166 of another Woodshop podcast, where this week we're joined by arguably one of the best storytellers of our modern times, especially on TikTok. His obsession with wood is only rivaled by his majestic mustache. When tracking state birds wasn't exciting enough, he turned to state trees. He's best known for making a U.S. map out of wood that is native to each state. And it all started with Utah's state tree, the Quakin Aspen, which actually sounds like an 80s ski movie about a volcano, but anyways. He's a full-time content creator, a woodworker, and an artist. Justin, the Trees Davies is here.
Hey, that was fantastic.
I'm gonna be fully honest with you. That is the best intro I've ever received in my entire life.
Yes,
so thank you very much.
That's all right. We'll send you a copy. There'll be a bill in the mail.
That was tremendous. Yeah. Wow.
The Quakin Aspen.
Yeah.
Is that a true fact? You looked it up? You did research on this?
Oh, I do research on our guests. Yes.
Oh my God.
Did you know that he used to be an marathoner? He ran 100 miles for
that's 100. Yeah.
For a slice of Casey's pizza.
Yeah. I mean,
I've done that.
I'm still trying to be. I used to be like a fairly competitive ultra marathoner. And now I'm more of a washed up ultra marathoner. So.
It's a wash up.
Yeah.
What's a washed up ultra marathoner? Just regular marathon?
Yeah, I'm just like if I can get
you only run 26 miles.
The whole thing.
Loser.
If I can get a race in this year, cool. But like it was a pretty heavy obsession of mine for a few years.
Now, speaking of obsessions, Dan,
here we go.
We have a list of people that are very obsessed with us, and we love that.
These people are obsessed.
They love us more than we love ourselves.
We have one new patron. I'd like to give a big shout out to Stephen Hawker. I believe he's that scientist guy.
Yeah. Yes, very smart.
He came back to be a patron of ours. Also, obviously, I got to shout out our VIP patrons, which are as follows. Victor Aragema, Matthew Hoff of Matthews Woodworking, Nick Brim Woodworking, Matt Maynard of Patriotic Pine, Steve Iadarola, Daniel Bryson, Bill Burkle of WTB Woodworking, Malcolm over at Bossanova Woodworks. If you're watching the video, he's on my shirt.
Voice of our intro, too.
Justin over at Calvary Customs, Patrick Ginsel, Square Splinter, Michael Flickinger, Scotty Holland over at Elevated Wood Design, Max and Mindy Coons at Stubby K Studio, and to round it all out, Jacob Miller at A Sweet Shop. Thank you to each and every one of you.
That is a sexy crowd right there.
What tier you are, we appreciate all that you do for us.
And speaking of all the tiers, this weekend, one night only, we're going to be doing a patron-only call. Doesn't matter what level you are, whether you're the $2 tier or $20 tier, secret $500 tier, you're all invited. This Sunday, you should already have the information in your mailbox. If you don't, message one of us. We'll send it over after verifying that you're a patron.
I was going to correct you and say that this podcast doesn't go out until Sunday morning. But if they're patrons, they're getting in early.
Well, they know
on
then.
Friday.
Never mind then. But we're probably going to record the call too. Maybe we'll do that. No, that's too dangerous. We're not going to record it.
No.
But thank you to our patrons. Hopefully we'll see you all Sunday. You paid for the whole seat, but you'll only use the edge.
Yes. It'll be like a monster truck show. It's going to be great.
Yes. Now, speaking of monsters and trucks, what's up, Justin?
Hey, how's it going?
That was the worst transition ever. So Justin Davies is here. Yeah, he's here for it. He's yes-ending really well. I love it.
Listen, I have a monstrous truck story that we can get to if we are scraping the bottom of the barrel.
If the interview runs dry, we're gonna be like, so how about that truck thing?
Yeah, I can tell you about my truck that's been in the shop for 3 years. We can get to that one at some point. So
Justin, and I'm foreshadowing here a little bit as some of our callers are gonna reveal, as well as I'll reveal. It's like we have not actually. Some people haven't heard of you until we brought you up. Some people, but you're monster account. You're a huge account. You are really good at what you do. You're legitimately one of the best storytellers, and I personally enjoy the monologuing over quality video type of or storytelling type of content, and you do it so superbly. But how did you end up down this road? Give us like the elevator pitch. Like, who are you and why are you so special?
Oh, okay. Wow. Well, first of all, once again, thank you so much. I mean, Peter, I'm just gonna have to ask you to like call and like just get me like revved up for the morning every time I like sit down at the desk and start editing.
I'm a hype man, whether you want it or not. It's happening.
I do want it, and thank you.
This is getting really. Do you guys want me to leave or?
Dan,
no. Hey, join in. Hop in.
I want you to watch. I don't want you to listen.
No. Yeah. It's kind of a weird. I don't know. It's kind of a crazy story. I mean, it's not that crazy.
There I was playing with my wood.
Yeah. No. I mean, like even 5-6 years ago, had you asked me like, you know what, Justin, about 5 or 6 years, you will be on a woodworking podcast. I would look you dead in the face and say, you, my friend, have gone bonkers. It just was not something I was ever really on my radar. As we were talking about, my real big obsession, like 6, 7, or 8 years ago was running. I got really into running. Like in 2011, 2012.
Well, you can only do that so long before you get tired, right?
That's true. Yeah, that's true. 27 hours is the longest I've tried to go.
Good Lord.
Time. But yeah, so I was doing a lot of that, and I've always loved the outdoors. I've always been just kind of an outdoorsy person. I'm from a very outdoorsy area. I'm from Utah, a lot of mountains around. Spent a lot of time exploring. And just while out on a trail run, just a normal everyday training run, one day I was just kind of making a steep climb up this one trail, and as I came around a corner, there was just this big beautiful tree right on the ridge line ahead of me, overlooking the valley, and it just really caught my eye. And it's a tree I probably would have passed dozens of times on this trail in the past. And for whatever reason, it just really, really grabbed me. And so I stopped and was just take a closer look at it. I'm looking for an excuse to take a break from the steep climb up as well. But I just sat and engaged with it, kind of walked up and was taking a closer look at it, like looking at its leaves, kind of touching it, feeling its bark, and just being like, what is, had this real realization moment that this is a tree that I've seen dozens of times before, and a species of tree I've seen countless times, and I had no idea what it was. And I've always fancied myself someone who, again, just knows a lot about a lot of things. I've always been a bookworm and a very curious person, and loved the outdoors and nature. And so I just couldn't shake that thought that here's this native tree, native to the foothills of the mountains, that I've grown up exploring, and I didn't know what it was. So I come back down off the mountainside, and I come home, and I hadn't been able to shake that question. So I hop on my computer and I just start Googling, which if you've ever done this, try to figure out what a tree that you saw at one point was hours later. It's not super easy. I'm just okay. Yeah. Tree that looks kind of like it's from the African savanna, Utah mountains. Like, I had no idea how to figure this out.
Sorry to cut you off. Do you have an iPhone?
I do.
You know, if you take a picture of a tree or a shrub,
I'm thinking this was before that, though.
At the bottom,
this was before that.
Okay, but I'm saying like nowadays, anyone that doesn't know
those apps,
you could like write in photos. You could take a photo of something, and there'll be a little eye at the bottom for information. And if you get a star next to it, it'll literally tell you what the tree is. It finds it on the internet.
That's built into Apple now.
It's built into Apple.
The Photos app.
You can take a picture of a cat. It'll tell you what type of cat it is. It's great.
Very Paco.
And the reason I'm calling this out is because you can put me in front of an oak or ash, and half the time I'd be like, I don't know, is it like a maple? Like I'm terrible with trees. Like I know wood, but I can't tell trees apart. Sorry, back to you.
No. Yeah, unfortunately that was not. Yeah, this was a little bit before that. This would have been I want to say in like 2016, 2017, around then. I mean, there were probably some identifying apps, but I had not yet had this obsession. So So eventually, you know, after some Googling, I figured out what kind of tree it was. It was a curl leaf mountain mahogany tree, Cercocarpus ledifolius, if you'd like to know the science.
As everybody knows.
Yeah, exactly. And so I'm just reading about this tree, and I was a little shocked at how fascinated I was by everything that I was reading. I just couldn't stop rabbit holing, like, you know, we were discussing the pre-show, just that habit of Wikipedia diving and then clicking on different links, and I was just super fascinated by, you know, the facts about this tree, where they grow, how drought tolerant they are, how hardy they are, how long lived they are. And one of the things a couple of things really grabbed me were some of the ethnobotany stuff. So like what that tree has been traditionally used for throughout human history and is currently still used for. And one of the things that really grabbed me, you know, like with that tree in particular, like some of its uses are, you know, you can make a red dye from its roots, and you can, the wood is very, very dense. And that's one of the things that really caught my attention was the wood is really dense, sinks in water. It's this beautiful reddish color, which is why they call it a mahogany, even though it's not an actual mahogany. And that thing right there, really, I couldn't shake that either, because I'd never really made anything out of wood before, but I ever assumed that would be something that would become an interest to me either. But I've always liked stuff made out of wood. I've always just loved the vibe of like a wood paneled room. I'm just very drawn to things made out of wood. So that was another realization I had. I was like, well, I can tell you what like maple wood looks like, or walnut, or cherry, or, you know, the pine. But so many of these trees that I know and love, that I see and I'm surrounded by when I'm camping, I don't know what their wood looks like. And so that became a new curiosity I couldn't shake. And so that was kind of the first genesis. And then the second thing that was happening at the same time was I was listening to Nick Offerman's autobiography on audiobook, Paddle Your Own Canoe. And he has a whole section. And I mean, this is one of the things we all love Nick for is he's so big into the concept of making things with your hands and the importance of whatever it is, just making something with your hands. And that was really resonating with me as I was listening to it. And he had this whole section talking about making gifts as an act of like anti-consumerism and just, you know, being able to practice making stuff with your hands. And so these two things kind of meshed together, like hit me at the exact right time, where I was like, okay, well now what I want to do is I want to see what this wood looks like, and I want to try to make something out of some wood. So it started genuinely as I went back up the mountain, hauled a dead piece of this wood off the mountain. And then I was like, okay, well, now I just got to figure out how to, first things first, I got to figure out how to see what this wood looks like inside. I don't know how to do that. So I'm like using a rusty old hatchet, chopping it up to see what it looks like, and doing my best to cut it open. Got like an old rusted pruning saw from out of my shed. And I'm just doing whatever I can to figure out how to cut these into planks. Eventually I see inside this. I'm like, this is so cool. I can't get enough of this. And then I go and I buy the cheapest bandsaw that I can find, and I start cutting just planks of this wood. And that quickly led to, well, I want to see what every species, I have all these other trees that I kind of know and love, but I don't know what their wood looks like either. So I just start cutting planks. And that's what I did at the beginning, was just literally cutting planks of wood just to see what it looked like inside. And that's where, that's really where the Nick Offerman book started to spring hold, as I was like, okay, well, why don't you try to make something out of this stuff? Why don't, like, stop making planks, make something. And I had to kind of swallow down a bunch of self-doubt. Like immediately I was like, well, you can't do that. Who are you? I was a marketing manager was my career. I went to school for marketing. I wanted to write my entire life. I never thought of myself as someone that could make something with his hands, or even thought he would want to, but the draw was very strong. And so I just thought, okay, well, let's just try. So I watched a couple of YouTube videos on how to carve a spoon, and I carved a spoon out of, I pruned a piece of cherry wood out of my own backyard and carved a spoon out of it. And it didn't look great, but it looked like something. And it was that really kicked me off. It was just like, okay, now we're off to the races. Like, this was not as hard as I thought it was going to be. This was a lot more fun than I thought it would be. And that launched the, I would say, I don't love the term hobby, but it launched the hobby of woodworking for me. And then, this was several years before I started making content. So for a long time, it was just I'm carving wood, I'm exploring, I'm just seeing what different trees are like. I'm researching trees because I find them very fun. I'm reading books about trees. But it took a while before I ever thought about making content out of it.
That's fascinating.
Wow. And you took an approach that most of our listeners did not, including myself. You started at the branch and the log.
Yeah.
And let me figure out what this looks like inside. For most of us, it's, oh, I like the way that walnut looks. I'm going to go buy some boards of walnut, or I'm going to build with pine first and stain. And like you didn't care about the finished project. You were more focused on the material. And it's a very cool approach. I think this kind of adds to why we kind of all grew up in this world of content in different circles.
Yes, completely. Yeah. It's, to be honest, that's still the way I approach it. And so I'll have as my platform has grown, I think that I can definitely I definitely sense that I've got these handful of different types of audiences, people that consume my content. And a lot of people are just like here for nerdy tree stuff. A lot of people are here just for overall vibes. And then I do have a certain subsection, I think, especially on YouTube, from people who are really into the woodworking stuff. And I've had to kind of try to educate them, like, look, if what you're looking for is someone who's going to teach you how to make a table, that's not what you're going to get here. I'd love to point you to people who can do that. But yeah, that's just never, and I super love and admire that process. And like, I'd love to learn how to do that myself someday. But for me, definitely it's about, it's always been, the way I like to put it is I'm a tree nerd first, and then like a woodworker somewhere down that line.
That's awesome. Have you ever felt
admire the hell out of it?
Yeah, that's awesome. Like, have you ever felt like because we actually talked about this last week with like dealing with failure, or like feeling like you didn't follow the right path in this whole journey, and like did you ever feel, or people made you feel like you weren't doing the right thing because you weren't building furniture like building tables, or like educating like larger projects, because you most of your content is like kind of handheld finished projects,
I certainly, I don't think any person has made me feel that way, but I certainly do. Like I'm very prone, as we all are, to a lot of self-doubt, and so that's something that I've had to constantly remind myself of and try to unlearn, where I feel very intimidated by people that I try to, I'll couch people like you guys, and probably like a lot of the people watching this as the real woodworkers and the real craftspeople, and feel very, we use that
term really loosely around here.
Yeah. But like
realism, we exist.
Feeling like that's a very inaccessible, like, oh boy, especially when that was a huge hurdle for me to start sharing content, to start trying to publicly post on different platforms, was a real scary thing for me. It was the concept of, someone who knows what they're doing watching this and being like, good sir, that is not how one holds a gouge. You know what I mean? Like,
I'm sure that's exactly what they said in their comment.
There's plenty of those people. Good sir.
There are, for sure. And I like, especially early on, I had a handful of people like that kind of coming after me in the comments, like, this is some of the worst turning I've ever seen. Let me tell you what to do. And it just took some work. It took some work for sure for me to stop doing that. And to be very clear, I've not had a single personal interaction with anyone who I would consider a real woodworker who has given me that vibe at all. They're always so like gracious and welcoming, and like so complimentary of the work that I'm doing. I just a friend of mine, we went and got lunch. This was a local furniture maker. I don't know if you know Chad Parkinson. He's at the furniture joint. He makes some of the most incredible, like, handcrafted. That name
sounds familiar.
He's been in Fine Woodworking magazine a couple times. He's literally, he's the savant. Like, he's so good. And he reached out, like, he's someone who I'd met a couple times. We have many mutual friends. And if he ever hears this, he would laugh at what I'm saying. But I was like so intimidated, because I'm like, this guy is so good. what on earth would he have to say to me? And then we finally like went and got lunch the other day, and it was just tremendous because, you know, he had the exact same type of thing. He was telling me, this is a guy who makes some of the most beautiful, like custom furniture I've ever seen.
Dan's, he's in a different tier. I'm looking up his stuff now.
His stuff's incredible, right?
Yeah.
And he's telling me the same
super
thing.
Super outdoorsy too. I love it.
Yeah, he's telling me this. We're having lunch, and he's telling me the exact same thing that he went through, which is like, you know, I started doing this stuff just on my own, and I felt the same way. And I think that's something that is important for all of us to remember all the time. And this is something I tell my audience, because a lot of people are also very afraid to dive into this, because we have this concept of, if you're not doing something perfectly at the beginning, then why even try? Or like,
what's the point?
Feel like, yeah, or you feel like you feel like everyone's gatekeeping this thing. And I think that it's that's so easy to build up in our mind that you gotta, it takes practice, but you gotta push that stuff aside.
Oh my God.
Because even my friend Chad, like even my friend Chad, he was the same thing. He was telling me the same thing. Like, I felt like I was not doing anything special either. Like, I felt like I was just kind of hacking through. So yeah,
that's you know, to kind of cut in here, I heard something this week. I love my like motivational quotes, because I throw them right back at the community, because we all need to hear it. And this one was, there's someone with way less skill level than you doing the exact same thing you want to be doing, and also making money doing it.
Yeah.
So like, you know, there's plenty of people that we'll see and like, well, I wish I was there. Like, why not? Why aren't you there? Yeah. Like, just go into, you know, they just didn't have the fear. They had the cockiness, the confidence, whatever you want to call it, to be that at that point. Like, you just have to lean into it. And I think it's a good sign, or like, you have self-doubt, because you have the mental check to be like, am I good enough? Yeah. Am I doing this right enough? And I think that is a key to being a quality, to do quality craftsmanship, or to do quality
craftsmanship, quality creative work.
You're checking yourself.
There's a really great Ira Glass quote, host of This American Life. I don't know the entire quote, but he has a really great quote about this very phenomenon, where this cross section of you have your people who have very little talent, but all the confidence in the world, and those are the ones who are often just like pressing all the way forward. And the weight of, if you have good taste and if you have a little bit of talent, that self-doubt is that much stronger. And you oftentimes hold yourself back, because you're constantly measuring yourself against other people, or people who are doing stuff really well. And
Instagram reality.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, yeah, I don't know. That was a bit of a side tangent, but that was yeah. Sorry.
No, that's fine. So let's talk about the content. So like, continuing like your journey and how you got into it. When did the content start? Like, all right, I'm gonna just lean into this. And then when did it blow up? I mean, it blew up. Like, you were on the news. There's articles written about you now. Like, you hit the internet by storm with. Really, the map project was kind of, I feel like, the catalyst. But tell us how did that whole thing happen, and when did you start? Because our listeners love to hear like the journey and like where they are in your journey, kind of.
Absolutely, yeah. So you know, I had just picked up that like again hobby, and again, like I said, I don't love the term hobby, because I think a lot of times
passion project.
Yeah, it's just like, it's something I like doing. I think hobby has this kind of limited or almost not derogatory, but people kind of think of as hobbies like, oh, that's just that silly little thing that you have your work, your real work, and you have your hobbies. And it's just like, we have things we like to do. And
how's that little blank thing coming?
Yeah. And it's just like, yeah. And it's just, you know, I think everyone should be constantly fostering things they like doing. And you don't need to commodify it. You don't need to, I don't know. Anyway, that's a whole other side tangent, but I'd gotten more and more into woodworking and trees as just something that I was super, super into. They just kept drawing my curiosity. And so I kept trying out different woodworking projects just in my own garage. But again, always led by this, I'm going up into the hillsides or driving along and seeing an interesting piece of wood and figuring out what I want to make with it. And then for my birthday in 2019, so August of 2019, I'd got I got a lathe for my birthday from my then girlfriend and my family all kind of went on a lathe in together. And so I got a lathe, and that really opened up like the type of stuff I could do, especially for someone like me who just wants to grab like a rough old piece of wood and make it into something interesting. Like a lathe is a really nice way to be able to do that. So I started spending even more time in the garage, making more stuff. And then, but I would post like Instagram stories for friends and family, but I definitely wasn't like, I'm trying to make content. I was just sharing the stuff I was doing in the wood shop. Then the pandemic hits, and I go through a
story as old as time.
Yeah, I go through a breakup at the time, and I find myself now with like a lot more time to like invest in myself, really self-reflect and doing some stuff, and getting back out to the mountains. I had kind of fallen away from my passion of running, but always wanted to get back out there. So I find myself back out in the mountains again, and I started. While I was out there up on trails, I just started being like, oh, I want to share. I've been sharing some fun little woodworking videos. I'm going to share some fun little tree fact videos just for the hell of it. And so while I'm out on a run, one day I was out on a run, and I just was the big tooth maple trees. That's the primary maple native to the mountains where I live, were really popping off. They were like really turning colors. So I'm like, I'm going to make a quick little video about the big tooth maple. And I find it an interesting tree, and it's probably a tree that people don't really know much about, even here locally. So I just made like a series of Instagram stories for friends and family. And it was just like, hey, get to know a native tree. And my friends and family loved it. They're like, we can't wait for you to do another one of those. So I started doing that like once or twice a month, just again for friends and family. And then, so I'm kind of doing all this mid-pandemic. And then at the same time, I was working, like I mentioned, I had about a 12-year career in marketing. This was a career that I just kind of fell into. Like I grew up wanting to be an author and write, and I felt like, who are you to think you can do that? So I didn't allow myself to chase after the thing I really wanted to do, and fell into marketing instead. Another tale as old as time. And I was just like so burnt out at this job. A bunch of my team members had quit, and I was doing the work of like my boss and another director. And I just was like, my workload was increasing. I was working 16-hour days every single day with no weekends off. And I was like, what is this all for? I'm about to turn 40. I'm like, what is this? What is this all for? Why am I doing this?
Preaching to the choir, man.
Yeah, it was that thing that I think a lot of us were doing at the same time, where we're all stuck at home. We've experienced this kind of crazy, traumatic global event. Now I'm working too much. I'm assessing my life. I'm having a midlife crisis. And one day I was just driving home. I had tried to go on a vacation with my family and did not get permission for it. So I spent the whole thing working, and I was driving home from it. And I thought, what if I quit my job tomorrow? Like, what if I just did that? How would that feel? Kind of playing with that game with myself on the drive home. And I was like, you know what? That would feel really awesome. Actually, no, that's not true. I'd done this. That's right. I'd done this experiment while going on another trail run up there. I was out on the trails, and that's when I was kind of doing that experiment. What if I quit my job? And I thought, this feels awesome. Then on the drive home, I call one of my employees, and I'm like, I'm gonna force my hand. So I called one of my employees and I said, hey, I want to let you know tomorrow I'm going to put in my notice tomorrow, and I'm going to quit. And just to let you know, and force my hand into it. And so, yeah, I quit my job on a whim. I had no backup plan, and I was not quitting with the intent of like, I'm going to quit and start making content, or I'm going to quit and like start woodworking. It was literally just, I can't keep on this path I'm on. I have nothing left in the tank. If I keep, I have no desire to keep climbing some sort of corporate ladder either. Like there was just no future that made sense to me on that path anymore. And I kind of had a realization that I'd rather like lose my house and be living in my car with my dog, trying to do something that felt more aligned with me than continuing to do this thing that I'm not even that good at to begin with. So I quit my job. And picked up some freelance marketing work, and then was just like, okay, well, let's invest in me. Let's do something that feels more creatively fulfilling, whatever that ends up being. And I was talking to a friend of mine who specialized in social media stuff. She does all the social media for the Utah Jazz, the local NBA team. And she was telling me like, you got to get on TikTok. Like, this is where it's at right now. And I was like, really, TikTok? Like the dancing app? And she's like, I'm telling you.
That was all of us. Everyone here.
Exactly. She's like, I'm telling you.
Yeah, if you go back a year and a half or so, we're all making fun of TikTok and we're all on there now.
We're all dancing.
Yeah. She's like, you're the stuff you're doing now, like, would do really well there. So I joined TikTok and I just started making some very rudimentary things, like throwing on a couple sped up versions of stuff I was doing on a lathe. And that, because I wasn't quite brave enough to do everything I wanted to do there yet, you know, it was, again, I was kind of protecting like my little fragile ego. And then I started to try to do a little bit more. And knowing that what I wanted to do all along was marry those two things that I have such a passion for, which was like nature and the outdoors and trees. And then my enjoyment of using that as like an artistic medium and making stuff out of the wood. And so I started incorporating a bit more of that. And I think I made my very first TikTok in probably like April of 2020 or 2021, excuse me, April of 2021. And in June, I had two that went significant, like fairly viral, both got over 1 million views. And they were very, compared to what I ended up doing later on, very basic and simple. It was just, one of them I had taken an old fence post from our family farm and made it into a vase for Father's Day. And then another one. Video. Yeah, thank you. And then another was cool.
Was that excuse me, was that juniper?
It was. Yep.
Okay.
Not juniper. Yep, exactly. Yeah.
That was the one that made me go like, oh, crappy old wood. I could actually still make something out of it. It's not just like firewood.
I love that. Yeah. And then the second one, like 2 weeks after that, about 2 weeks after that one, I had this cool old log that I found on the side of the road, and I had thrown that on the lathe and made a vase out of it. And that was just a really cool piece of wood. It had just this rotted old piece of aspen. It had, once I carved in there, it just had tons of curl in it, just tons going on, a lot of spalting.
Chatoyancy.
Yes, and that was the birthplace of that. I was literally
Chatoyancy.
Yes, my setup, my making setup at the time. Like, again, this was also rudimentary, as I was just like on my laptop, throwing in camera footage and speeding it up in iMovie, and then putting that on my phone, and then sitting in my closet, recording into my phone for my audio, and like looking at a piece of paper that I had written the script down on. And I had just done like some very rudimentary research for that voiceover. And that's when I learned the word Chatoyancy myself. And I
learned it from you.
Yeah, there you go.
I learned it from this podcast.
I am a quote unquote real woodworker, and I learned
from
Chatoyancy
too.
From Justin's TikTok.
Well, I learned it from just Wikipedia, because I was familiar with like figured wood and curl. Like, there's so many
exactly. That's what I always knew it as.
So, and those are the names for it too. And I was just
show title.
I was Googling,
you can spell it.
Curly wood and stuff, and I found a Wikipedia article that mentioned Chatoyancy, and I was like, that's a weird word. I've never heard of that word before, and it's kind of fun to say. And then that video blew up, and like Chatoyancy just became like a meme of mine. And so then it was kind of off to the races from there. It was like, okay, there's something kind of here.
And this is what year? This was
2021. This was like June of 2021. June of 2021. And so I was kind of in this space for a few months where I was just making a variety of videos. I was just kind of figuring out what I like to do. I was starting to appear in front of the camera a bit more, trying to like not just do voiceover only and show myself a bit more. And those were going well. And then I started getting I started doing some of the more foraging videos, because that was another thing that, again, when I started researching trees, one of the things I loved about it was like, boy, these trees have so many more uses than I ever realized. Like, I didn't know that spruce tips were edible. I never knew that. And I didn't know you could make ice cream out of it. And I didn't know that, you can make syrup out of green pine cones. Like,
I love the cooking videos. Those are great.
Yeah. So I tried out some of those, and those started doing really well as well. And so I'd grown a pretty sizable audience, bigger than I ever thought I would have at that time on TikTok. I think I was up to a few 100,000 followers. And then that's when that's when I finally decided to pull the trigger on the map. And that's, as you mentioned, is when things really went into an entirely new level. This
also, I want to pause right for a second, because you're like pretty sizable. Like, okay, 208,000 followers on Instagram.
Yes.
Then on YouTube,
It's crazy.
846,000 subs on YouTube.
Yeah, it's insane.
And TikTok is a monster at a whopping 1.4 million followers on TikTok.
He does a lot of booty dances over there, folks.
For all of you that are like listening right now, like, who the French toast is this guy? Like, how have I never heard of him? Like, he literally grew up in a different bubble of content.
Yeah.
He fell into a completely different niche, and like that's so crazy that like, dude, everything you're saying, me and Dan are just like nodding.
Yeah, I've spent this whole podcast just nodding.
Like,
so if you haven't heard me talking, if you watch the video, I'm just over here nodding.
Yes, quitting your job. Dan was looking to start another job just so he could get the high of quitting again.
Oh yeah,
this
I
isn't
really
even
want
a
to do
joke.
that.
This was literally
like so good.
It came up once. Yeah, he wanted to do it again.
I haven't had a full-time quote unquote job since 2011, so I've been thinking about just going to get a job just so I can get the high of quitting.
So they can give the boss the
not
finger.
a lie.
Outstanding.
Like Justin, you're like your journey is what all
it's
of us
fantastic, isn't
want
it?
to do. I have done. Some of us have done. You know, it's crazy, man. And like, look at you now. Like you really are a monster truck account.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's full circle now. Back to the start.
Oh, I see what you did there. The monster truck.
There it is, monster truck. There it is.
That's funny. I posted a video on Instagram of like some curly walnut, I think, and somebody commented, that reminds me of that guy that says Chatoyancy. I'm like, oh, that's Justin. So I tagged you and you commented. I was like, oh crap, this guy follows me. I should see if he wants to be on the podcast. And that's funny how that came full circle. Yeah. Anyway, I just want to throw that out there. My little claim to fame.
That's your claim to fame.
No, I mean, it's still all so bizarre to me. Cause you know, especially once it becomes your job, this is jumping ahead a bit. Once it becomes your job, it's so easy to like get caught up in that. Oh man, I haven't had a video that's done well in X amount of time, or like, my growth rate is really stymied. And it's just like, it's always good to stop and take a step back and be like, dude, look at these crazy, I get recognized on the street constantly. It's just like, this is
you're
bananas.
That guy.
I still have never been recognized.
I get recognized at
my
the
claim to
mail
fame
aisle.
is I'm not famous.
Yeah, I mean, especially like because I blew up on TikTok, and again with content that is intentionally geared to be very broad. You know, my not so secret mission is I want to get people to like foster a curiosity about the environment and about especially the trees in their own backyard. And so my goal has always been to appeal to as broad an audience as possible. So I have a very young audience, really young audience.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, of course. And
well, jean jacket with rolled up sleeves and a mustache, you're hitting the right group there. You're good.
Your content is fantastic. I love the enthusiasm, the energy, the knowledge. Like I come to watch your videos to learn about trees. I'm a woodworker. I'm not there to learn about how to build furniture, but all three of those things just draw me in, and it is encapsulating. I love it.
Oh, thank you so much.
Look at me trying to use big words.
I love that. Thank you so much. Yeah. No, it's super fun.
So for our listeners, obviously Justin's talked about all this, his origin story and what he's done to become him now, but genuinely look him up. His claim to fame was that initial map that he built, or that he made.
That whole series is fantastic.
The whole series is amazing. You actually did a compilation video as well, I believe.
Yes.
It was really good. I remember binging that that was like an hour-long video, and I really enjoyed it.
It's like an hour and 40 minutes. It's nuts.
I just put it on in the background while I was cleaning the shop the other day.
Well, so, I watched all of them in sequence.
Calm down, Dan. All right, yeah, we get it. You're a big super fan. We get it. So he made that map of all the official state trees. As you mentioned, I forget if it was in a pre-show or a main show, where you talked about like a lot of these trees were chosen by like
that was
middle
pre-show.
School.
I think that was pre-show.
That may have been a pre-show.
Between.
Yeah. So like a lot of these, trees they're state trees, they're in the state, but they might not be exciting. And now you're working on a second map of the US that's more fun trees, let's just say, or things that an eye of the beholder, like what do you think is more of an exciting tree than just like oak for the third
perhaps tree? I mean, perhaps the official state tree map thing was, that as you mentioned, that's really when things kind of took off to a level that I didn't think they ever really would. Like I had reached a few 100,000 TikTok followers. I'm like, boy, how am I ever going to top this? And then this is kind of goes back.
I'm gonna do the same thing again.
Yeah. this kind of goes back to one of the things we were talking about earlier. Is I'd always had this idea of making a map. As soon as I got into woodworking and got into trees, with again my background being I want to know what the wood from different types of trees looks like. I've always loved maps. I've always been like a geography nerd. And so I thought, okay, I'd love to make a map of wood from trees that are native to each of those states and compile those all together, make a map. But definitely once I started making TikToks, you're always like desperate for a new video idea. So it
leaves people hanging and it keeps them coming back. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
It really
like
is
for
brilliant.
part 2.
Yeah, I'd had that rolling around the back
Like
of my
for
brain.
part
I was
50.
like, this will be such a great idea. And I put it off forever because I was like, okay, well, if I'm going to do this, I need to learn how to use a CNC machine because I need to carve them perfect. They need to fit together perfect. And I just need to do this. And you know, I had that, I'd put that roadblock up for myself for so long. And then I had just that cool piece of aspen in my garage from that same aspen video that had blown up like earlier in the year. And I was like, okay, well, you know what? Aspen is Utah's official state tree. They changed it in 2014. That's kind of an interesting story. I'd done an Instagram video about the change of the tree like a year prior.
The quake in aspen, right?
Quaking.
I'm from Jersey. I just, if there's an ing, I just put an apostrophe at the end.
Quaking. I love it.
I love it.
Hey. The quaking. Hey.
Yeah, I'm quaking here.
But no, I was just like, you know what? I'm just going to do it. Like I've got a cheap old bandsaw. I don't have a scroll saw. I'm just going to like.
I love that bandsaw you got.
Yeah, I'm just going to.
I'm all about hoopty bandsaws, man.
I don't even know how I'm going to do this. Like I'm just going to project it onto a wall and like it just, you know, it doesn't need to be perfect, man. Just roll with it. And so I just forced myself into starting this project with, again, very similar to when I quit my job. I was like, I don't know how this is going to end up. I don't know if I'm going to be able to find all these species of state trees. Like some of these are trees I've never even heard of. I'm just going to roll with it and see what happens. And I posted that first video and it blew up. And then over the course of that series just took off. Cause again, people were just on the hook for it. People loved it. And pretty quickly, that's when my TikTok viewership, my TikTok follower count went from the 300,000 I thought was like my ceiling up to over 1 million in just a matter of a few months.
That's crazy.
And that's.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I also absolutely love that you made me want to get a scroll saw. Like, because like you lean into the scroll saw. So I am guilty of this. And this is something that's just kind of bred of the community.
Yeah.
But some people refer to the scroll saw as like the sewing machine of the woodworking world. You know, like sure. A bunch, you know, maybe there's several accounts that are predominantly women that would make signs or make something else. And like, it's almost become like, oh, guys don't use scroll saws. Like it's so dumb and so weird, but it's something I'm calling this out because I've noticed this
call it out.
To a point where it's like, why are, like I noticed this when I mentioned a scroll saw to a friend of mine once, and they were like, "What? You don't use scroll? You don't need that? Like, why would you get a scroll saw?" Like, because I just want to. I think they're
because
cool.
It's fun.
Super tight turns. It's a bandsaw on steroids, but also smaller. So like, you just lean into it. You do your carve, and then you always do the, you know, the wide shot.
On the
you're
stool
like sitting in a stool with a crossed leg, and just like you're carving it almost like you're packing a pipe. You're like carving it right by your face.
Yeah.
I love that shot always. It's always like such a like cocky, like I'm sitting back like, yep, I'm done. I'm just cleaning this up.
I love that. Tremendous.
The interview, you did I watched the interview that you did on the news show, channel, news place, whatever.
Was that a local news channel or what was that?
Which I'm trying to place which
which one? When I was on the Today Show or
yeah, which one is that? It's the one that's linked in your on your site or your link tree.
That was. I mean, yeah, I've only done 2 like on news appearances, and they're both local.
Stop flexing like it's
so
many.
I don't know why I asked that. I don't know why.
I'm kidding. But it's it's funny because they're like, oh, how long does it take? And you just the most real answer ever. You're like, oh, the carving doesn't take that long, but the content took like a day, and by day I mean 24 hours.
Yeah.
To do the content.
Yeah.
between
yeah.
like I started recording, I edited, I put all the copy together, voiceover, everything. But
Yeah.
like the carving was what, an hour, 2 hours of work, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. No, truly. And especially like what always blows my mind too is I'm so used to every time I'm working on making something out of wood, I'm filming the process. And if I do anything where I don't film it, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so much faster. Like this is 10 times faster to
At
not
least
film
twice
it.
as fast.
Because I'm constantly, oh, it's so much faster because
Yeah,
I'm constantly
I'm on
stopping and
his-
readjusting the camera and
10 times faster.
This
Yes.
whole week, anytime I had very little shop time this week, and every time I did, I was like, I'm not recording anything. No stories, nothing. I just need to get this done.
it's infinitely faster. It's crazy.
Well,
And so that's one of the things I'm constantly saying is like for me, I say this a lot, like when I'm live streaming, people ask me questions. Just another reason I think of myself as not like a full-time woodworker, because I'm just truly not. But like I'd say a given week of work time, maybe 10% of my time is in the shop, and the rest of it is scripting, narrating, editing, do
what you love, and you'll do it 10% of the time.
Yeah, like, but it's a lot of, and it always takes me so much longer than I think it's going to. Like, yeah.
Well, that leads me to this question.
Yeah.
Are you currently doing this all by yourself, or do you have any sort of? Well, are there any aspirations of bringing anybody on to help you?
Oh, absolutely. I would love. What I've really been focusing on this year is the long form YouTube stuff. As you mentioned, I've got a really big YouTube subscriber base, but I grew that base through shorts because when I was like, okay, I'm going to try out YouTube now.
That's interesting.
I had a lot of success on TikTok. And so I had just this backlog of old TikToks that were, my TikToks are a little bit longer. They're between like 1.5 to 2.5 minutes long. And so I took all these old TikToks and cut them down to under 60 seconds so that they could be posted as shorts. And then I just posted a bunch of shorts and I took off there. What I'm learning is that YouTube treats their short form algorithm and their long form algorithm fully differently. So only about 2% of my subscriber base on average actually sees my long form videos. So I kind of have to build that long form YouTube audience from scratch.
Yes. We've talked to several people who've regurgitated that.
Yeah. That's why a lot of people tend to do clips channels. You know, they'll like have a separate clips or shorts or bourbon bites or whatever. Because they find that it's not only that you're not getting good performance on your long form video, but certain sponsors will look at that and go, well, like, yeah, you might have 1 million subscribers, but you're getting 60K views on a video.
Yeah.
Like, that's nothing for us. And they just want to walk away from it. So it's very interesting to hear that, because like you are a very big account on YouTube.
Yeah.
But, and I'm not saying, but like,
no, but you're right. No, it's, but this is how I feel about it. This is like,
but you were making a living with this.
I'm scraping by right now is what I'd say. Like I last year actually merchandise was the bulk of my revenue. Like
really? Okay.
Because the state tree map was so big, I made posters, I made stickers. I sold a lot of posters and stickers, and that was like how I made most of my money last year. And then this year, since that, after I finished the official state tree map, I did a map of the UK and Ireland out of some interesting.
It's all one place, by the way, listeners. One place.
Yeah.
And then I started a map of Canada, of their official provincial trees and territorial trees. I'm still working on that one now. And then I've started this map of just interesting native trees, because as you mentioned, the official state tree map is a lot of like duplicate. About, I think 42% of the states in the country share their state tree with another state. There's only like 32 trees on that map. So I wanted to be able to do a second map where I'm like, hey, there's a lot more than just 32 interesting trees in the country. So let's do 50 of them and show you 50 cool and unique and interesting trees. And this was another big part of this too, was I was like, I'm going to launch this as one of the big long form YouTube series and kind of have more in-depth episodes. So sometimes in those episodes, I'll do like for the Missouri black walnut, for example, I in addition to making the state, I also kind of showed black walnuts versus English walnuts, and I made black walnut ice cream, and I made a little black walnut ice cream dish. And so I for Kentucky Coffee Tree, I got some of the coffee tree pods and took the seeds and roasted it as a coffee substitute, which is what one of the traditional uses of the tree. And so I try to incorporate a little bit of that, make them a little bit longer and more expansive for the YouTube stuff. Anyway, all to say, to get back to like the YouTube long form stuff is where I'm putting my attention to, in the hopes that at some point that audience will start to catch enough that I can then be comfortable. Yeah, I'm confident it's just going to take some time. Like, I've been investing in it for about 6 months now, and 6 or 7 months, and feeling like constantly feeling right there on the precipice. And to answer your original question, high on my list, as soon as like I've got consistent income coming in from YouTube, I'd love to hire an editor. I'd love to I'd love to really, my goal is to really expand some of those long form ideas and get out into the field. And and my friend Chad, I mentioned, I've already been talking to him like, hey, because I don't see myself because I am not this crafts person, I would love to be able to come and highlight you, and you be a part of it, and you show me what it is that you do, and kind of use myself as an intermediary between showcasing, using again the trees as the basis, but being able to talk to craftspeople, woodworkers, dendrologists, foragers, cooks, chefs, people that use trees in interesting ways, and expand that out and highlight other people. And that's my like dream scenario, dream goal, is to get to something that highly produced. But that's just the nature of the game, right? Is like you need to grow the platform first before you can grow the content.
Well, we can guarantee you're going to get 5s of new followers from this podcast. So
tens.
I will take
it. We are happy to help.
And I checked,
especially
Justin, your first, and I don't want to just compare long form, short form, because your short form is quite long for as far as TikTok goes. It's 30 seconds plus for most of the content, which is to most of us long form. Almost
I really don't make anything under a minute.
Exactly.
Often.
But it's more vertical versus horizontal. And your first horizontal video, fully horizontal video, was 9 months ago.
Yeah. Oh, so I've been at it for 9 months. There you go.
Yeah. So Missouri black walnut.
Yeah.
That was, so that's the first time you did a full horizontal video. And by the way, as far as like the production level, like you're there.
Yeah.
Yes.
I just want to reiterate that. Like,
thank you.
Whatever you're doing with lighting and the bokeh in the background and everything being clean and neat and the shots being set up, it's interesting. It's good cuts. And if you guys are like looking to learn like some good, interesting videography skills, I recommend looking at your channel.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
Don't let it go to your head, but it's great.
It will. But no, like my guiding light always, and I would say this is what I say to anyone who's like, hey, I want to do what you're doing, or I want to make content, or I want to make stuff out of wood. Like I want to get into woodworking. It's like, just what I let guide me, and what I always recommend to let guide other people, is just like, what draws you in? Like what draws your curiosity? What is it that feels fun for you to do? Do that. And so I try not to, I don't know, for like the YouTube long form stuff, for example, I'm like, I kind of know in the back of my head, if I were to make one of like 4 types of videos, it would probably pop off. But that is not the type of content I'm interested in making. That would also be really misleading it would bring in a type of audience that would start expecting something I'm not going to be wanting to
clickbaity stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And not that there's, like,
I can't believe what I found inside his stump.
Yeah, exactly. And there's not a shot to someone like people that do that type of content, because hey, if you like making it and it's working for you, cool.
This piece of wood ruined my business. And my favorite, I quit. With Ash.
Yeah. No, but it's so, just today I was up acting like a goofball in the mountains, filming myself, and I've got like a tray of fir tip slurry on my kitchen counter right now, because I'm going to be making this like slushy fir tip dessert. So it's just like, again, just
cooking channel, man.
Yeah, well, I just kind of incorporate all that into my regular content. It's just, you come here for like woodworking and foraging and cooking. And that's another part of the problem is I think the algorithm is just a little bit confused by me still. They're like, wait, what are you making? And it just takes them a little bit of time to figure out that it's a lot of stuff.
Yeah, but your name is perfect for what you're doing. It's just in the trees.
Yeah.
I mean, you're just doing tree stuff.
Well,
You're not
just
necessarily
in
just doing
the trees.
woodworking.
No. Yeah.
You're not necessarily just doing woodworking. You're doing everything that like encapsulates trees.
But it is quite.
themselves.
This is a nice example of being. We always talk about niching down. Like, you got to niche down. You got to stay within your niche. Whatever. If you do too many things, you're not going to do well. Like, look at how much you're doing while still very tightly in the niche.
Yeah.
Like, really still within that like narrow blinders of wood related.
Yeah. And that's again where I would just say, like, just do what is it that lights your fire? What is it that like keeps you engaged and interested? The minute you start saying, well, I feel obligated to do this thing because like I'm only going to be a real woodworker, a real content creator, a real whatever, if I do X, like you're toast, you're done. You're going to get bored with that. You're not going to be interested in it. So I'm just a big believer, a huge believer in just chasing curiosities and doing stuff because it delights you.
Absolutely.
Amen.
Well, speaking of things that delight us, we should probably jump into what's on a bench.
We should.
And we can't do that until I play this sound.
What's on my bench?
And you know what? I'm going to do something unorthodox. I'm going to kick it off because my week was super boring. Work has been kind of crazy. And I have to reiterate that I love my job. I love what I do. I love my team. I'm not when you were talking about not climbing a corporate ladder or whatever, like I can so relate to that. And I found a job where I'm very like, I'm not I clock out and I'm not expected to answer an email. I don't have to work past certain hours. I don't have to do ridiculous things. So, that's the only reason I'm still working a full-time job is because I really enjoy it. But work has been a lot this week. Aside from that, my Emma, my wife, who basically she just went recently full-time. She retired from teaching dance. She's now full-time with me in her own business and like helping manage both of us because I'm all over the place unless I have someone like really keeping me on track. And she's been helping out. She's gone. She's in Dallas she's at a convention right now in Dallas.
That explains why you don't answer me ever.
Yeah.
I feel like maybe when I text you, I'm talking to Emma.
There's very few times if I'm driving, like sometimes she'll answer. So, but no, like she's gone. So like we haven't gotten to sit down and like take care of like admin tasks and like, hey, you got to do a post today. You need to finish this video. You got to reach out to the sponsor or whatever. Like I'm kind of all over the place and work has just been throwing me off. And, but some exciting stuff happened this past weekend. There was the Get Your Ship Together event at the Total Boat. Ship as in like a boat.
I get it.
Yeah.
Ship your pants.
Because it's like, yeah, you get it. Okay. So Total Boat was doing basically a maker boat build off. There was 4 teams. They built these crazy elaborate boats, and all of them were built out of no more than 3 sheets of 1/4-inch ply that was CNC'd out and layered together and then splined together and stuff. No 2x4s, even though there was 2x4s used. They still use
Jackman was there. We know there was.
Well, yeah, there was. They built a boat that was a hammock. It was like a frame in the center. They were in a hammock. They were called the Swingers. They used, for some reason, they used pineapples as the ornaments and the flotation devices. And then they built these 2 gorgeous kayaks. They finished them with epoxy and fiberglass. They were shiny. They were perfect. But Total Boat was also, they were doing points based on how many products you used, and then also points in a different category for how artistic you were. So after they built these beautiful 2 canoes as the outriggers for the trimaran, they spray painted them with paint, rattle can. After but just it was for the content, for content and for points. So, but anyways, they did this event. It was a blast. It was great seeing all the makers that were kind of, and like we talked about our bubble, like all the makers in our bubble, like from the Jimmies to the Lindsays, like Keith, everyone that like we know and we interact with regularly. and Dan wasn't invited. I wasn't invited either until the last. I was like an afterthought. They're like, "Oh, hey, you're in the area." In the area meaning 4.5 hours away.
I think
You
it's
wanna
because
come
I'm in
up
Nebraska.
on
Everybody's
Sunday?
anti-Nebraska.
That's what it is. They forget it's a state.
That's what it is.
Yeah. So we went to that event. It was super fun. They did the race. We hung out for the day. We got to kind of like see some people up and down the coast too, because it's a bit of a hike. So if we're gonna go out there, we want to make sure we see a bunch of people. So we saw some Boston people that came down, and then obviously everyone that was visiting for that event. So that was super fun. But that was my week. No other interesting stuff happened. It's just been a lot of keeping my life together and taking advantage of some free time to do admin stuff and no shop time whatsoever. So Dan, what's up with you?
Believe it or not, my week was more boring than yours.
Oh,
It's like, why do I even do a woodworking podcast? Am I allowed to be here? It's been so hot in Nebraska, so hot and humid. Look, I know if you live in Arizona or whatever, I know it's hot there, okay? But we also deal with humidity, which is...
yeah, but it's a wet heat.
It's a biatch. It's really awful. So I've been trying to stay out of the shop as much as possible, even though I do have an AC in there and I have been running it. It doesn't keep up very well. So my time in there has been like an hour or two per day, just enough to get orders out that need to go out that day for Etsy, and then just like call it quits. So I would go in and I'd do a little research, and I often find myself sitting on my phone and going through like Pinterest and stuff, just trying to get ideas for the next big thing, right? I feel like I spend way too much time doing that.
Yeah, by the amount of memes you sent me, yeah, you spend too much time.
Oh yeah, I do
Doing
send
that.
a lot of memes. I get a lot of memes.
Memes.
Memes. Anyway, so yeah, my time was a little bit of Etsy. My farmhouse table client did message me and say, "Hey, we need to get
Hey, remember us?
we need to get our foot on the ground here and probably finish this up." So I took some big pieces of walnut that I had stashed in my rack for like ever. They're just really gorgeous and curly. Chatoyancy. And
Gorgeous.
I took it to my buddy who's in downtown Omaha here. He's got a real great resaw machine, so that I could utilize the pieces
I saw that. That's
as
a
much
nice
as
machine.
I could.
Awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna have to get rid of like 3/8 of an inch off these boards, and it just
It's a
I couldn't
Bandsaw
just
mill that just moves the wood for you instead of moving.
yeah. It's a Lucas mill, I believe. No, a Wood-Mizer. It's a Wood-Mizer resaw machine, not a Lucas mill. And
but it doesn't move on a gantry. The wood moves.
no,
through.
yeah, it's got a belt and it just runs the wood through, and
Cool.
it's
cool.
basically just a resaw machine. So yeah, I couldn't bear to like run those through the planer and just plane off 3/8 of an inch. I just think that's silly. So I'll find something else to use those quote unquote cutoffs for. And then those pieces that I took there are going to be the leaves of this farmhouse table. It's going to be, I really should get in gear and finish this thing, not only for the clients, but when it's done, when I put finish on this thing, it is going to be absolutely beautiful. I picked out some of the most figured walnut I could find in all of the Omaha metro area, and it's going to be
Gorgeous.
It's going to be gorgeous. It's going to be absolutely gorgeous. So I cannot wait. I think that's pretty much it. I do get my sleep aid tomorrow.
You get your Darth Vader mask?
Yeah, I can't wait. Woo.
Dan was recently going for sleep apnea testing
Oh
because
boy.
we all want him to live longer.
Yeah, please do that.
Please do that.
Yeah. Apparently I don't sleep well at night, so
Ooh.
that's fun. I get to wear a
We
mask
can all
at night.
attest to that, Dan. We think you die multiple times.
I probably do. I feel it. I feel it every morning. So hopefully I'll have more energy during the day here pretty soon. Maybe by this time next week. So Justin,
Hope
what are
so.
you working on?
Oh boy.
Lately?
Yeah. So let's see. This week started out the week by making Virginia on this new map right
Virginia?
here.
Which is 2 parts.
Yes, indeed. Yeah.
How annoying is that?
You cannot forget the
The
what
little
do they call that
dingle-dangle?
thing? The little eastern coast there.
Oh yeah, the Virginian Knights. What are they called? Virginians? Virginians? Virginians?
Virginians.
They probably would let you know if you forgot that.
They would. In fact, funny story on the official state tree map, I did Maryland first, and the reference map I used didn't have the borderline there. So I accidentally carved that little dangle kept it as part of Maryland, and a bunch of people were like, whoa, that's the Virginia coast.
So
that's
you got
Virginia.
canceled for that?
A little bit. Yeah, a little bit.
How dare you?
The people of Delmarva, the Delmarva Peninsula were none too happy.
All 10 of them.
But yeah, I made Virginia there out of a beautiful piece of eastern red cedar. So the shops.
Those are invasive here in Nebraska.
They are. I was reading they're invasive in some of the parts in which they're native. That's just they're a pioneer species, meaning they take over like human disturbed sites or any disturbed site very, very well. So yeah, they can be kind of a problematic tree in that way, which is interesting.
I have one of my best friends from way back in the day. He's an arborist now. He runs a big arborist company, and he used to spend his free time going to preserved nature areas here in Nebraska and Iowa and just cutting down eastern red cedars and chopping them up and getting rid of them because they were so invasive, and they were taken away from the natural prairies and the bur oaks and the white oaks and
grasslands in particular. Yeah, they can choke out a grassland for sure. So yeah, super interesting. So yeah, I did that, and then I'm going out of town next week. I'm going on a little trip up to Bear Lake, Utah on the Utah-Idaho border. And so I'm just like in desperation mode to try to get one more video out before that is done. So I've been making.
What are you doing up there?
My girlfriend's family is up there, so I'm going up with her family to a little vacation house and just spending some time on the lake and just chilling. I'll be doing. I'll probably, I'll definitely be hitting the trails and probably trying to film some content while I'm out there. But in the meantime, I've been working on another video. I went up and forged some fresh new growth fir tips from some subalpine firs, and making you've mentioned spruce tip ice cream. I love making that every year. I'm doing like a variation on that this time.
Is that a Douglas fir or is it just a fir?
It's a true fir. We have a ton of Douglas firs here, but this is the subalpine fir is a true fir. I'm making like a little slushy type dessert, and so I've been in the shop, speaking of Douglas fir, actually turning a piece of Douglas fir in like a little goblet to serve the stuff, this slush stuff in. So I'm working on that and hoping I can get that done before I take off. But again, these videos just take far more days than I ever plan on, so we'll see. Fingers crossed.
I'm asking for a friend here. I'm not gonna name any names, but is there any kind of tree that you can make a mayo out of?
Make a mayo, like a mayonnaise?
Yes. Dan's from Nebraska, so mayo is their state bird. So they're very, very big on mayo out there.
A fun thing about me is I dislike mayo. So
as does half of America.
Sorry, Dan. Sorry. I don't know. I can't explain it. I'm not a mayo
Never meet
guy.
your heroes, kids.
You know, when ultra marathoners, they use the goop and stuff. Dan's will get like little mayo packets from the gas station.
Facts.
That gets him going. But the marathon is just from the couch to the shop.
Oh my gosh.
That's my marathon right there.
I really need to be mixing something into some mayo if I can palate it. It's a weird thing. But
it's eggs and oil. It's weird.
I know.
But like somehow
something about
good,
the smell and the sheen. I don't know. I can't explain it.
The high gloss finish is bad.
I don't know what it is. I understand I'm being irrational, and I'm like, I was a very picky eater as a child, so just know this is a thing about me that I've had to like overcome.
But spruce tip ice cream, that's fine.
Oh yeah, it's so good. It's so good. It's so good.
No, it looks fantastic. I'm gonna be honest.
I bet if I made I will make my own mayo at some point. I bet I'll enjoy that more.
Actually,
I am here for it.
Wait, do you follow True Hockey or Pure?
Oh,
Pure
of course.
True, yeah.
Old time hockey.
Yes, old time hockey. That's what it is. Old time hockey.
He's an absolute legend.
You guys need to just connect.
Oh, I would love that.
My God,
he's out of my league by several orders of magnitude.
Oh, get the heck out of here! Yeah, we got you on our podcast. You're out of our league, so you guys need to connect. That would be a seamless collaboration because you could just give him a recipe for something like this, and he can make it on his thing, or you guys could do it together. Man.
So Dan, for your edification, Old Time Hockey is a TikToker, a very, very famous. I mean, he's in like, what's he at? Like 9 million followers. He's huge.
I don't know, the most mellow, chill dude. I just want to like have a soda.
He's
pop
a dude
with
that he lives up in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan and just lives like in a little shack in a
I thought
cedar
it was in
swamp
Canada.
there. No,
Because
it's
of
in
the
the upper.
hockey.
He's
Basically
a
Canada.
He's a Youper. He's a Youper.
No, one of those.
So he just his content is just like all about cozy vibes, and so he just it's
Really?
him. He's got this big old mustache. He does speak with like a very, it's so close to Canada. It does sound like a very Canadian accent.
Hello,
but
buddy.
yeah, and so he just makes
Super chill.
he'll do like
vibes.
little recipes and just very cozy. He's just a chill dude. We stand
All
him
right.
here for sure.
I will be writing that down. Okay.
Oh no, it's a great account to follow.
Yeah, it's a
Absolutely.
wonderful account.
All right.
All right.
Anything else you're working on?
I mean, other than just the ongoing projects of this map and then the Canada map, I've only got 3 pieces left on the Canada map. But
call out to. Are you still in need of pieces?
what I really need for Canada is tamarack larch, which I've been able to find big slabs of online, but I'm not ready to spend like $700 on a larch slab for this silly little map. So
then the shipping costs.
yeah.
So Justin, to our listeners, because we have ones of listeners in Canada.
Yeah.
So if you guys are listening, and if you have a tamarack larch,
if you go to range, let me double.
I was gonna say on his website, he literally has like the dimensions he needs.
Yes, I do.
And the type of wood.
If you go to
And I did research
rangenative.com/map, rangenative.com/map, it has the dimensions I need for the tamarack larch there.
Pete will put that in the show notes. Everybody.
Oh, I will.
I need to update that because some of these I still have.
Some of them you already have?
Some of them I'm asking for and I have them now. So
Okay.
it's truly just the larch that I need.
Oop, I did tell you that. So I'm gonna throw that into our show notes here.
Rangenative.com/maps.
Yeah. Also
/map
check out his-
singular.
Oh,
Map.
map.
plural.
Map
Singular, not
singular.
plural.
Yeah.
Plural singles. Well, with that, why don't we jump into our questions? Because we have twos of questions, and we have to play this first.
Oh, Black Betty, ramble lamb.
That's Dan singing Black Betty, and that somehow became our voicemail thing. So first one, let's I'm gonna start with Malcolm. So Malcolm is the voice of the podcast, if you hear the intro, and here's Malcolm.
Hey guys, it's Malcolm from Bossanova Woodworks, and I want to thank both of you for bringing on such a cool guest in Justin. And I gotta admit, Justin, I feel a little ashamed because I only discovered you today because of the podcast, and that's really my loss. But my question is for you. I know you're a tree nerd. What is your favorite tree to climb? Okay, thanks.
And also,
He had a great
Malcolm
question in the.
asked a great pre-show
Yes.
question, and we said we're going to answer it in a show, which is, what is the best and worst smelling wood? And I think Justin's going to take it in 2 directions, which is wood and tree, because it's true, they smell different. But what is your favorite tree to climb? Because you were in one today.
Yeah. I was climbing up into a tree that was like more at this angle because I went up and explored an avalanche debris field. We had a very heavy snow winter this year here in Utah. And as a result, we had a bunch of avalanches up the canyon near my house. So I was exploring those debris fields. But favorite tree to climb, the ones that came immediately to mind for me were more about specific individual trees, more so than the species themselves. Interestingly enough, and they were ones like, makes sense, that I remember climbing as a child. There was one in this big cottonwood tree, would have been a Fremont's cottonwood most likely, in the yard of my elementary school. I loved climbing up in that big old monster. And then very closely related, my dad's side of the family is originally from a town in central Utah called Fillmore, and we still have some farmland down there. And I grew up going down to that little patch of farmland a few times a year as a kid. We still go down there quite often. And there are a bunch of old silver poplars there that I remember climbing up in, loved climbing up in those as a little kid. So both in the poplar family. And then I would say nowadays, another tree that sprang to mind. I love climbing up into, this is not a tree to climb high in because they don't grow that tall, but I just love climbing up when I'm down in the desert into these big old Utah junipers because they grow at such crazy angles. You can kind of, again, I'm not getting way high off the ground, which is probably for the best now as an older person. So I just kind of love, I just love climbing up in those like big curvy limbs and just it's not about getting high up into the tree, but it's about just kind of climbing up into the branches of a tree and hanging out and
chilling.
Chilling. Yeah. So those, I'd say those are three that came to mind.
Fun fact. I've never shared this on the podcast. I've never really had a reason to, but when I was about 12 years old, we had a oak tree in our yard, and I climbed that thing one summer and I fell out. And I had to wear a neck brace, like a really hefty neck brace for like the whole summer. It sucked. So I don't climb a whole lot of trees these days, believe it or not. I haven't really climbed trees since that incident.
Yikes. I'm very sorry to hear that. I do think if you're answering, like if I'm answering this question more directly, like what are the best trees to climb? I have to think like a good big old white oak is probably one of the gold standards of like a good tree to climb.
Yeah. We used to go to a lake a lot when I was younger than my past story. There was a willow tree that was perfect for climbing. It was great. Me and my brothers would climb it. It's pretty fun. I remember that. What about you, Pete? You climb any trees?
So recently I had to do some trimming in my area. Actually, even around last Christmas or November-ish time, I was putting up, we have this, actually, Justin, you would love this tree. So one of the things that like we really loved about the house we picked is right in front of the house, there is a cherry blossom dogwood tree. And we were like, Tafa? Like what? This is illegal. How are the two trees? Literally the week we came to do the inspection, check out everything, it was like full bloom season. The top of the tree is white. The bottom is pink. It's so cool. And what happened is somebody grafted on a dogwood tree onto this cherry blossom. It's right in front of the house. So when April hits, it's just gorgeous. It's literally two different colors on one singular trunk. And I love this tree, and I hope it never dies on me because it's just super cool. There's a couple branches where I've been trying to be good about pruning it. If I see some dead branches, take them down so they're not wasting resources. But the other weird thing about it is maybe it's because of the splicing and they're growing at different rates and stuff, like fist-sized things of sap coming off the side.
Whoa.
Like big old chunks of sap. And then, you'll see them like actually droop down to the ground and like sit on the rocks.
I think that's an opportunity to make your own syrup.
I guess.
I know a guy who could probably teach you how.
I know a guy. So like I've been in that tree before, and I love that. I love climbing that tree. I've been up in a bunch of times since we moved into the house 3 years ago or 2 years ago, whatever it was. But my fondest memories growing up was we had these, and keep in mind, this is growing up in Poland. We had we lived in a small city, big town, whatever you want to call it, where like we lived in these kind of beautiful communist blocks, with like there was multiple apartments, 10 floors, whatever. But there was parts of town, the city, that were like set aside as gardens, and you can buy a plot of land, you can have your own garden and a shed and everything. And we'd go there almost like multiple times a week, and we had two large apple trees. Like when I think of apple trees here in the US, I think of like these large bushes almost. They're very short. The branches are crazy, but like these things were like, I'm almost imagining them like oaks, like these just solid trunks with branches coming off of them. And I remember I was able to like just jump up and grab a branch, which now thinking about it, was like 4 feet off the ground. And I was able to climb up these apple trees, and I would like hang out in trees, and I'd rig up stuff with the ropes and whatever. And then we also had a cherry tree where the only way I can get into that tree, because it was a little taller, this thing was like grew super tall. I was like, now thinking back, like I don't even know how tall it was because I was very little back then. But the only way I could climb that tree is I would go up on the roof of the shed, and then I would get into the tree, and I'd feel like I'm like cool because I'm all up there and stuff. So that's my like first memories of climbing trees. I used to love going up in them. But More and more recent times, the times I've climbed into trees has been almost to do like arborist stuff, because I used to be a rock climber, so I have a lot of rigging equipment. I'm kind of like how you are with wood species and everything. I was with rigging, SAR, rescue,
cool.
stuff like that. So I have all this gear for rigging up things, and I used to get up into trees and just like figure stuff out and like get up there and like, I'm like 30 feet up and figure it out how to get down and be safe. But I used to enjoy that. And I don't do a lot of it now, but it's still fun to just get up into trees with some rigging. I kind of enjoy that. Also, there's something about wearing a sneaker up a tree, and then you get into that V and your sneaker gets almost jammed in there, and you have to like try to pull it out and not fall out of the tree. A little bit element of danger. I don't know. It's just my fondest memories of climbing trees. You brought me really far back with that, Malcolm. I enjoy that. Now let's talk about smelly trees or smelling wood. So what is the best and worst smelling wood?
Best and worst. So let's see. Best smelling wood. I'm very partial to two native species around here. The Utah and Rocky Mountain junipers. Both of those. Close related to the aromatic cedar there. So just that juniper cedar smell, as well as the pinyon pine. The smell of pinyon pine. It's this very sweet, piney smell. It's so good. Those two are kind of tough to beat, in my opinion. Wonderful smelling woods. Worst smelling wood, and highly invasive species around here. Russian olive smells really bad. It smells like.
I'm not shocked. The Russians are the worst.
Like
dirty manure is kind of what it smelled like. It's this tree that like soaks up, like just pulls up a lot of stuff out of the ground. I don't know. It's just that smells real bad. I think that's probably the worst my shop has smelled. Is Russian olive is what I'm going to say for that one.
Thanks,
Dan?
Putin. Worst smelling wood by far that I work with, zebra wood. Zebra wood is it smells like urine when you cut into it. It's really bad. I do not like it.
A lot of the exotics smell funky.
I see now my favorite smelling wood is Paduke. It smells kind of chocolatey. I love the way it smells.
See, I almost don't think of Paduke
it's very dessert-like,
as I don't think of it as like a foreign wood. I feel like maybe I just, in my woodworking world, I just like grew up with it. Like, I don't think of it as like a foreign wood. I don't know why.
Really?
I don't know. Like, it's just like, to me, it was always so accessible. It felt like a domestic.
Interesting.
But maybe just like where I grew up, where I started doing woodworking was always available.
Well, yeah. And then obviously, the go-to answer, I really do like the way that walnut smells when you work with it, and cherry. I really, really, really like cherry. It's my favorite, especially not even just working in the shop, but like using cherry as a smoking wood for smoking meats. The aroma it gives off when you burn it, because obviously woods have a different aroma when you smoke or burn them. Cherry is wonderful in all regards, in my opinion.
Yeah, it does.
It's just really great.
I have a giant cherry tree in my backyard, and like I mentioned, the first thing I ever tried making was a spoon. I carved that out of some green cherry wood, and that's a great smell too. Is green cherry wood kind of has like an almond like scent. It really nice.
Awesome.
Well, for me, best smelling is probably aromatic cedar.
Yeah,
and my first real like exposure to it, working with it, was getting it from Black Forest Sawmill when they started sending out their slabs. This is pre-COVID still. They started sending out slab. You could just buy like, they would fill the 24-inch box from USPS, the flat rate box with it, and you can get like little mini slabs. And I remember like milling them up and being like, this smells incredible. But also it's like the finest dust. It gets everywhere.
It always reminds me of like guinea pigs.
Like the shavings for
because when I don't know if you guys know, like when you had guinea pigs as pets as a kid, like that's what you put in their cage, and it just always reminds me of that.
But like best smelling, like if I'm gonna jump here, but like best smelling wood to me, for some reason, just it's such a core memory for me, is pine trees, pine needles, pine trees, pine cones. Like I just love a good pine tree. Like if I go into a pine tree forest, I'm just happy. I'm just like deep breaths, love it. Just something about it. That's why I love anytime I can get live trees. Like now, like Christmas is one of the times of the year I'm like, we're getting live trees everywhere. So we get one for our bedroom, a live tree, and we get one for our living room, and I just enjoy the heck out of it. And I think last year we even got one for the shop. So I just love that scent. And even like as it's like dying and like drying out, like it's just releasing that smell throughout the house. So good. Now the worst smelling wood, I don't really have one like that's jumping off the page at me, but somebody gave me a bunch of like this initially when I started like woodworking. They're like, hey, I have a bunch of this like oak flooring, and I don't know what this was dipped in, whether it was like formaldehyde or something, pressure treated. It was the worst smell. Every time I would mill it, my entire shop just smelled like butt and poison. It was so bad. But one other smell I enjoy is 1/8 inch Baltic birch on the laser, because there's something about the laser that like caramelizes the sugars in the wood.
That makes sense.
It happens with maples, and oh my god, if I ever burn like cedars or even like softwoods especially, the aromas you get off of like literally cooking this wood, so good. Like I thoroughly enjoy it when I'm lasering for like the whole day. The whole shop just smells like marshmallows. And but then you burn like one thing of acrylic and it just is the worst thing on the planet. Oh, so disgusting. Good question. All right, next one is from Thomas, and he's French, so we'll translate.
It's the final
French.
Hey guys, hi Justin. First, I want to say, nice mustache. Next, I started watching your YouTube channel like a few hours ago for the podcast, and I have to say, your channel is one of the rare I subscribed after the first video I saw. It's just so great. Alright, now that I've thrown enough flour for life to be a bed of roses, it's question time. Question time! Would you like to make a Europe or world wood map? Did your cat ever manage to catch a bite of the food you made for alongside the map? Does your mustache catch shaving and dust when you turn wood? And finally, have you ever considered to make a cooking show? I'd totally watch that. Alright, bye!
Thanks, Thomas. What do you say, Justin? Did you catch all that?
So
I did catch all that.
So the first question is, would you make a Europe map? And Dan, the UK and Scotland aren't Europe, or Ireland, I'm sorry. Would you make a Europe or a world map?
Wait. UK and Ireland are not Europe?
They're in.
They are a part of Europe. Yes.
They're not. Oh.
Yeah. Europe. Yeah, Europe is a continent and consists of many nation states.
Omaha is a part of Nebraska, but it's not like Omaha isn't all of Nebraska.
Okay, well, I'm gonna have to go do some reading or something. All right, continue.
So, would you ever do a Europe map or a world map?
So, to answer the question, yes, I am 100% planning on doing a Europe map at some point. I actually lived in Europe for a little while at one point. I'm
not shocked for some reason.
You look like a Finland guy.
Denmark, actually. So a Nordic country,
Long
country. I am fluent in Danish. So that's
really. Are you really?
Yeah. I'm fluent in eating cheese Danishes.
My brother lives in Denmark.
Does he really?
Yeah.
Where in Denmark?
He's in. Oh my god, I'm blanking on our name. He's about 45 minutes north of Copenhagen, northeast. Frederiksberg.
Yeah.
It's right in a part of the island, northwest part of it.
Cool. Yeah. I mean,
where's your family from?
Well, my family wasn't there. I was just living there.
You were just living there.
Yeah.
Where were you staying?
I was kind of a little bit all over the place. I lived in Copenhagen for a while. I lived in Aarhus, the city of Aarhus, for a while. The city of Fredericia, kind of on the Jutland Peninsula, and the city of Esbjerg on the west coast. So,
very cool.
Yeah.
Also, one of the best parts about Denmark is like almost everyone speaks English.
Yeah.
Sorry, now you're talking my language.
Yeah,
It's not even their second language. It's a second first language.
It
It's
was
crazy.
it was always really foolish to be like, hey, I speak Danish and I recognize that your English is better than my Danish will ever be, but like maybe speak Danish with me. Like, I don't know. It's
Danish chicken.
yeah, but no, I love Denmark, dying to get back out there, and would love to. Am 100% planning on doing a Europe map at some point. Whether it's so basically, I'm planning on finishing the Canadian map as soon as I can, and then this US map will obviously take me a bit. So after the Canadian map is done, moving on to another region and doing that region. Could be Europe, could be somewhere else, could be South America, could be Africa. Who's to say? So I'll decide. Europe is very high on the list of possibilities, again, because I have a lot of connections there, and just I have a sizable European audience as well. So high on the list of possibilities. A world map. After I finished the official state tree map, that was probably the number one request I had, and was probably the easy, would have been the easiest lever to pull to like keep the TikTok algorithm like juiced on me. But I personally just don't have a big desire to make a world map for a few different reasons.
Antarctica, mostly, probably.
That's one. That's one. Two.
Yes, what's the national tree of Antarctica?
Yeah. Two.
The icicle tree.
Yeah, exactly. Just some rocks and penguin. I don't know.
Oh my God. Sorry. I just looked something up. I'm like, all right, what is the national tree of Poland? And it's Pedukaloty oak, which is literally English oak.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. So
come
this
on,
is
Poland. Get your own oak.
No, this is the other thing is, if when I do Europe, it will not be official national trees. It'll be like a blend, because again, like the map would be 85% oaks, because when you're picking like a national tree, you get as basic as possible. It's like, our national symbol is the oak because oaks are strong, and it's just
and it doesn't upset anybody.
Yeah, exactly. It's just not very interesting. So when I do Europe, it'll like, some of them might, like, some national trees are interesting, so it may be a national tree, but most of them will be me picking an interesting native tree to that country. For the world map though, the biggest problem I have with it is just the scale. Like, I would just hate to have, hey, I'm doing the map of the world, and this episode is about Jamaica, and the lignum vitae is just such a cool tree with incredible
just
wood,
like one little piece of grain.
Just this tiny little shaving. Here you go.
Yeah, what projection would you use? The
and then you have to
Mercator
pick
projection? What are you
It'd
going
be
to
a
do?
full wall
someone's
section
gonna be
of it.
mad. Someone's gonna be mad about the projection you use, no matter what. I just like the regionalized views more. So I would love to, at some point years from now, look back and say, I have now made a map of every region of the world, but there's just not a really realistic way to cohesively put them all together.
Continent at a time is better than worlds, because world is really hard. There's too many small.
There's too many
the Chads and whatnot out there.
Yeah, I mean, again,
the country,
like,
not the guys.
Just
what do you got? What's the deal with Chads? Please, I know some okay Chads.
And don't even get me started on Genovia.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's probably why I won't ever do like a full world map, but all the regions of the world I'd like to get to eventually at some point. So
I mean, when you do all the regions, you can glue them together and call it a world map.
I mean, you could, but then I'd have to I'm not planning on scaling them that way, because then I'd have to have just.
Well, think all the people you'd upset.
I know.
Putting them
I
together.
wonder which national tree is MDF. Like, which country is that from?
I always thought it was Poland, but
hey,
you corrected me.
I looked it up. The most common tree type in Poland, pine. I'm not shocked. But when I think of Poland, I think of a birch. Like white bark. Like, I just saw them everywhere growing up. It was just a very common tree to see. So we'll see. Well, there's a lot of research for that one.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
Okay. Tomas' next question is: first of all, do you have a cat?
I have 2 cats and a dog.
Oh, you have 2 cats. Okay, I know. I've like seen a dog. I feel like I haven't seen a cat. But did your cats ever manage to catch a bite of the food you make along with the map?
Yeah.
English
He's
farmers.
referencing specifically my episode where I made Washington on this new map, which is just out of frame, out of a piece of Western red cedar. And as part of that episode, I made some cedar plank salmon, kind of talked about the process of like
Ooh,
just
I love
very
that.
simply making some cedar planks. And while I was eating, one of my cats jumped up and was aggressively sniffing it. And
I don't blame him.
yeah, and he's funny. He'll sit and sniff and maybe paw at, but he's never like aggressively trying to eat the food. So I don't think he ever did get a piece of that. My dog Miles will often get, like, I will pay him tax from some of the meals for sure. So
You have to.
Sacrifice.
Yeah, he's gotten plenty. He's 12 now, so he's earned his keep.
Oh,
That's internet law. You do have to pay the dog tax.
yeah. Especially at that age, he gets whatever he wants.
Exactly.
Oh, man.
Does your mustache catch shavings and dust when you turn the wood?
It does, and there is I have a video in particular. I remember, I think it was I did one about winter solstice where I made a bowl out of just some wood in my garage and made some popcorn and put it in the bowl and was just talking about solstice as a holiday.
I recall that one. Yes.
Oh, thank you. There's a clip there where I just got like a long ribbon of shaving hanging from my mustache for a second. So that's one time in particular that I remember when I saw that on camera. I'm like, that is making it into the final cut for sure. And so, yeah, sawdust, bits of shavings. And you guys know the game where you like get in the shower and you're like, oh, there's here we go. Yeah.
And you look at the shower floor and it's like nothing but sawdust. And
Yeah.
you're like, oh,
yeah.
I am a filthy man. And we've talked about this. We've brought it up in the show already. Like,
But he never answered it.
Yeah. Have you ever considered making a cooking show like its own? I think you'd have a huge base for that.
Yeah. I mean, I
Or
would
a series, like a cooking series.
So
Cooking with Justin.
I probably just need to like throw a better creative restraint around it like that.
Just in a kitchen.
I have a playlist on TikTok called Eating Trees where I kind of compile all of my
Nice.
cooking TikToks under that playlist. And I have, I'll do YouTube videos, a lot of YouTube videos there. So will I make like a cooking specific show? I don't know. I'd love to. You can always
Food
count.
Network.
You can always count on me to make a lot of cooking content using trees, an interesting recipe point, because I love doing that. How that's going to be incorporated potentially, I don't know. We'll see. Constantly evolving, but the episode I'm working on right now for YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram. The next video you'll see from me is a cooking adjacent video. So absolutely.
Nice. I'm here for it.
Cooking.
I love those videos.
Love that.
Mhm.
Wood adjacent.
We like
Wood
it.
and cooking. Yep.
Wood and cooking.
Eating trees.
I like it. Eating trees on TikTok? That's your
the
little playlist
that's
on
just
TikTok?
the playlist. Like that's just
All right.
kind of a fun thing I like to mention it as. And then I on YouTube, if I ever like really get organized on YouTube long form, that would I could 100% see myself like throwing that in its own
Little subcategory playlist thing.
its own playlist series thing as well. But right now, like it lives under
picture
everything
stuff
else.
is separate channel for just that. Like that's
Yeah, I have not
that's
hit
the
there
Mr.
yet,
Beast
but-
level, you know.
Yeah.
Where you're like, oh no, I do so much of this. Like
You're
this
gonna
is
make your own
channel.
chocolate bar? We're gonna call it Justinables.
just in a bowl.
No? Okay.
It's like a poke bowl.
I'm into it. Hey, I'm into it. There's.
I mean, if you do it, I get 10% for the
Many-
Many 10%. Like this guy just jumping in. I want credit.
nuts do grow on trees, so there's a connection right there.
Therefore, money does. Boom.
Oh jeez.
Fantastic.
Well, that's all of our questions. Justin, you have been an outstanding guest.
Well, thank you
This has
so
been
much.
fantastic.
I'm
I
sure our
enjoyed
audience will
every
agree.
minute of it.
Yeah, this has been really great. Dan
so
was like,
fun.
"Oh, we should have Justin on." I was like, "It's crazy. He's a nobody." And then, proved me wrong. I'm kidding. Totally kidding. But,
No,
dude,
I am a nobody, so you're not wrong.
we all
No,
are.
I was.
all are.
I'm going to be honest. I was a little intimidated to ask you. I thought you'd like brush me off, and I'm really glad that you answered and said yes. This has been fantastic.
Yeah, I love. You can't stop me from talking about myself for an hour and a half.
No, we like it. That's what we do here. So this is perfect. It worked out well.
I'm glad, because most people are like, "Oh, an hour and a half? That's a lot." Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us. This was a great episode. This is a great piggyback off of last week's episode, which was just like talking about like failure and dealing with failure and like we were very real. By the way, shout out to anyone, if you're still listening, also anyone that reached out to us about the episode. I think I've gotten the most feedback, which is like a couple people. Like I think in total I got 4 or 5 people that reached out, but that to me speaks volumes.
A quarter of a dozen.
That's at least 3, like people that reached out. And usually we might get maybe 1 message about something, but like you guys really enjoyed last week's topic, which is kind of putting it out, being very raw about the subject of like failure and failing or feeling like you're failing, because the whole Instagram reality thing is very tough. And Justin, I cannot tell you how much I appreciate you being so real about everything you're doing and being like, I'm scraping by and I'm doing this and I'm just trying to figure it out and I'm just trying to have fun and I quit my job without whatever. Like, that is the most real conversation we've had here in a long time, and I really appreciate that.
Oh, you bet.
So shout out to you, dude.
Thank you. Good. Yeah,
this was fantastic.
I mean, to be clear, scraping by but loving it. Like this was the gamble I made with myself. Where it was just like I'd rather my level of stress of doing something fun and interesting to me is much lower than my level of stress was being comfortable at a desk.
Say it for the people in the back.
Yeah.
Yes.
That just reminded me. I want to shout out a listener that called in last week at 3 a.m. after we recorded, Dan, about a story about a failure.
That's right. I forgot about that.
So this is an account that I actually love to follow because she is one of the most like, just like the way her brain thinks with woodworking and incorporating CNC and stuff into her work is incredible. And that's Susie. I'm not going to try to say her last name, but Susie from Monarch Woodworking. She is based out of South Africa. I've been following her for about 2 years plus probably. And she was talking about, and actually, you know what? I'm just going to play this voicemail that we had because, well, if that's okay, Dan.
No, it's perfect. I just got to take a timestamp.
Yeah, no, I'll get it in there for you. So we talked about failure and all that stuff. And first of all, the fact that we got a girl, guys. We got a girl that listens. Awesome. Yeah, yo. Second of all, she was nice enough to call in, and she's one of our listeners that's on literally the other side of the world. We have Ash over in Australia that listens. We've had some people, based on our downloads, we've seen that we have South America. We do have some downloads in Africa. We have some in the Middle East, in Asia. It's really crazy how far we stretch, but
we're always charting in Sweden for some reason.
For some reason.
We are, for real.
So if it's okay with you, Justin, I want to just play this quick little voicemail from Susie. So basically the premise is, and there's some photos included with this, she had a project that she did, and then she sent it out to the other side of the country. And then this is South Africa. So like other side of the country, this isn't a safari. In nature, like there's no like flight or whatever, like you drive in a Jeep for hours on dirt roads. And she had something sent out, something happened to it and it didn't work out, and she had to go on site to fix the repair. So she talks about that failure. So let's listen to that real quick.
Hi guys, I just saw your story on Instagram and thought I would share an epic fail that I had. It's Susie, by the way, in South Africa. A couple of years ago, I had a big job. Well, it was big for me at the time. It was 20 side tables for a game safari lodge away at the top of the country. And it was via an interior designer. So I made the tables. They had a sort of CNC pattern in them with that had got black paint, and then it gets sealed and off they went. And it was COVID at the time, and they had been using sanitizer on the tables. And long story short, obviously I hadn't sealed them properly, but the paint was going everywhere, like smearing down them. This is a 5-star lodge, a million miles away, and it was a big embarrassing problem for me. And basically to send them back to me and for me to fix and then send back was going to cost like thousands in courier fees, thousands of rands I'm talking about. And so in the end, I suggested, why don't I fly up and I'll bring my stuff and then I'll fix them there. And they were very keen on that idea. So I grabbed a friend and we flew to the nearest city, and then we took a big road trip to this 5-star lodge, and we had the most incredible time. They treated us like celebrity guests, and we quickly fixed and re-sanded and resealed the tables, and then they took us on safari. We stayed an extra night, we had 5-star dinners, and it just turned into one of those lemons into lemonade situations, and got a 5-star safari out of it. But yeah, that was an epic fail on my part.
But how do you predict that there's going to be a global pandemic and a rush
Right?
on hand sanitizer that's filled with alcohol that's going to ruin the paint on the tables you made a year before? Like,
You do an alcohol finish or like cleaning on anything over time, it's going to just damage it.
yeah, I mean, that what a way to make an amazing adventure out of such a negative thing at first. Like that's a great story. Thank
And
you
I was
for
fortunate
walking
enough
us
to like actually follow this while it was happening live. So, hey guys, failures happen, and sometimes what you perceive as failure ends up being Justin with millions of subs and followers. Just him doing his thing with like little hiccups. You just grow.
A lot of hiccups.
A lot of hiccups, and we all get there. We all get there eventually with a lot of hiccups. But huge shout out to Susie. Thank you so much for calling in. Go check her out. It's Susie SUZIM or McAfee Woodworks or Monarch Woodworks. I especially enjoy her account. I'm going to shout her out. I especially enjoy her account because she does a lot of CNC pattern work. She doesn't actually CNC it. A shop next to her does. But she thinks in straight lines and patterns, which is the way I think. I can't do flowing lines and like what Justin does, my brain doesn't do. I do right angles and patterns. And she makes it still look like artwork. Whereas I just, to me, just looks like what I do is just boxes and angles and things. It's not the same. But
you're the best at boxes, though.
The best at boxes. But anyways, thank you for calling in. Justin, I cannot thank you enough for joining us. You've been awesome. Thank you for all the knowledge you dropped on us. I feel honestly really fired up about tackling some things.
Me too.
In my life.
Love it.
Super fired up. Yeah. You're an amazing inspiration. I'm so glad you were here. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. This was awesome. This is so much fun. And we
hope we get to see you at Maker Camp or Workbench Con, because I think you would really enjoy these events. We got to bring you into our bubble. We have cookies.
I love it. I'm down.
Cookies and long drink and other things.
So again, thank you so much for joining us. If you're a patron listening to this, we'll see you on Sunday for the Patreon call. And then everyone else, next week, we are being joined by Jeff from Two Moose, and maybe even Jess, if we play our cards right. But definitely Jeff is joining us next week, so pretty excited. He's another one of guys like Dan and I that does a lot of production work and Etsy work and client work and stuff. So it's going to be really good to have him on there. Maybe we'll think of a topic, so we'll see then. But thanks for joining us. We'll figure it out. Love you guys, and we'll see you next week. Love you. Bye-bye.
Love you long time.
Bye.